You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul.
offering in-depth analysis on all things Boston Celtics with your hosts, Jim and Mike Quigley.
Out here, down to 3 to 2. Tatum drops the A. Tatum delivers one.
The Cavaliers' undefeated season is no more. They are now 15-1 after losing to our Boston Celtics, world champion Boston Celtics last night, 120-117 at the Garden. And Mike, I thought there was a lot of positives to take away from this game. I'll start off with I thought there was a playoff intensity from the get-go. I thought the intent offensively was excellent from the very start of the game, even when they weren't, successful trips with points. And certainly dug in defensively early on in this game. And I thought set the tone for the majority of this game on what it takes to be, an elite team, what it takes to be in a championship team. And the Celtics certainly shown that last night. They were certainly, at times not perfect, but on the whole, as a Celtics fan, I think you have to be very happy with this performance against a very, good Cavaliers team.
I was wrong. I was wrong in my prediction.
Well, that's why the predictions, I guess,
Yeah. The Cavaliers kind of shot like shit from 3. But yeah, I love the way the Celtics came out. There was a possession when they came out of a timeout, and and it was Cleveland who called the timeout to kind of
early in the game. Yep.
Yeah, and the Celtics came out with some very intense defense. I thought the defense set the tone. I know a lot of people are going to point to the shooting. I think the shooting is attributed to the focus, and the focus you could see was evident through the defensive intensity that the starting unit brought. And so I thought it was a great win. I think it was a great win too because the bench came in the second and the third quarter. In particular, one player in particular that really impacted this game in a negative way for the Celtics. But in both instances, the starters came back in the first half and extended the lead, and the starters came in the second half and kind of rode it out and finished out the game with, quite honestly, Al Horford bailing Joe Mazzulla out of a loss with. And we can talk about Keita and Mazzulla's comments after the game, which were really interesting and kind of cool, but also, it was a great game, Jim. I thought Tatum was very, very focused. I thought Brown was almost too intense because he was trying to do too much on his own. But just the defensive intensity from the starting unit was awesome. It really was.
Yeah, no, it was impressive, and I thought the Celtics made a conscious effort defensively where they were going to take away the 3-point shot. They certainly felt like they were more comfortable having the ball in Garland's hand than I thought Mitchell in this game.
Garland was 3 for 21.
Yeah, and you really, I thought Al Horford on both ends of the court was just fantastic. Both defensively and offensively. Evan Mobley is turning into an elite all-around player.
You think?
And he really impacted that game last night. But I thought at least Al made it difficult for him when he was in there, as opposed to some of the other stuff we saw. There was just a focus, and there was a physicality that I really enjoyed. I don't think it was a well-officiated game by any means last night, but the officials let a lot go, and the Celtics, particularly Tatum and Brown, had to finish through contact often when they were going to the hoop, and they
did.
They were driving to score, not driving just to draw the contact and get to the line. They were driving to score, and I thought, these physical games that the Celtics are having now, and they're seeing more of, I think, this season than they saw last season, is good for the Celtics. And the other thing that's really interesting is there are more teams now that want to play like the Celtics than we saw at any point last season. That's for sure. Where it's, guys that are going to spread you out, put the ball to the deck, look to move it, not just this isolation game that we saw in the NBA be kind of dominant for years. And I think the more of that you see during the regular season, the more that's going to help you as well. And the Celtics certainly seeing a lot of it. They saw it last night. I thought when the Cavs got going, when they were at their best, they were sharing the ball and driving hard to the basket and either trying to score at the rim or kick it out for a three. When they slowed down, when that run stopped, it was really when Donovan Mitchell went to hero ball. And I thought that, played right into the Celtics' hands. And, I'd be interested to see, the next time they play, if we see less of that. And I know he had a couple shots to get himself going, but then he didn't until the end of the game. So it was, I thought, a really good all-around effort by the Celtics. But there were things that we can take issue with. But before we do that, I know you want to specifically point out, greatness that the Celtics showed, particularly from one player.
Yeah, man, it's Jason Tatum. And, it was a play last night. The first one was in the first half. He gets the ball. He's going full speed. And he gets fouled, not called. They weren't calling these fouls, but two guys, they were going to double team him. And Tatum does a jab dribble 1 foot beyond the 3-point line into the two of them, and they both bounce off him.
Yeah.
And he takes one step back, and his body has no reaction. He doesn't lose balance. He doesn't lose focus, and he hits the three. And I just thought that was like a LeBron James kind of moment where he was just, I'm a lot stronger than all you guys. I take really good care of my body in the off season. And my balance and fitness is just on another level. I just thought it was an incredible play. And then in the second half, he comes down, he misses a wild layup. Cleveland gets the rebound. The game is sped up. Both teams are not playing well. Cleveland has a possession where the ball gets tipped. A guy dribbles off his foot a little bit. It gets picked up. They shoot a wild layup, or it was a block shot. The Celtics get the ball. They're going 300 miles an hour. Tatum does a dead sprint down to the corner three. And he looks out of control too. He gets the ball, and like everybody else is at full speed, and he's just somewhere else.
You're talking the fourth quarter, right?
Fourth quarter, yeah. He slows down. He takes a couple dribbles into the paint. Because the game's out of control, everybody runs at him on Cleveland. And he finds Peyton Pritchard for that wide open three. I was just impressed with the play because the game was so hectic, and he was the only one on the floor that had control of what was going on. He knew what he was doing. He sprinted to the corner. He got the ball. He knew he was attacking. And his attack was deliberate. It wasn't out of control. It was kind of slow and methodical. And he found Peyton Pritchard for the three. His game, he's just on another level. Like, I know Jaylen Brown was MVP last year, but his game, Jason Tatum compared to the rest of the league, except for a few guys, it's not close right now, Jim, how good he is. It's really not. I mean, he's making plays on the defensive end. You go back to the game before where he was picking up Jakob Poeltl at the end of the game, switching off a guard. You saw the defense he played on Darius Garland on the ball last night in the first half. It's a complete player with like a Tom Brady type laser focus. It's when he's locked in like that, oh man, like it makes me think the Celtics are definitely going back to back.
Yeah, and it was set up too with before that drive and kick from the baseline, where he drove for a two-hand dunk. Similar play, not as off the fast break, but he was able to, Cleveland's defense was a little soft and slow to help, and he was able to get a dunk off the baseline from a ball fake on the three. And this time the help came, and he was able to deliver an perfect pass to Peyton Pritchard, and kudos to Pritchard for
drilling that shot.
But that's what you're kind of seeing out of him right now, is being able to read the defense and take exactly what they're giving him. And it's something that, has developed over the last few years, knowing, okay, here's my opportunity to drive and finish, or here's trusting my teammates, or taking that three. In both instances,
and it's
he could have taken the three in both.
And that's the thing.
And he turned it up for a better shot.
You're talking the fourth quarter, a hectic moment. a big moment in the game. Like a lot of superstars are driving that to the rim, trying to get a foul. They're taking that 3-point shot. They're not making that play. There's very few players in the NBA in that moment that are doing it as good as he is right now.
And then what else impressed me too is I spoke about, playing through contact and the physicality the Celtics brought in that fourth quarter on consecutive drives and consecutive offensive possessions. Tatum and then Brown went to the hoop and finished through contact.
Yeah.
And got big layups and big points, not leaving it to the officials, but, going right at Mobley, going right at Allen and scoring through contact. And I think that bodes well for this team going forward. Obviously, the concern was the third quarter in this game. The Celtics had
freak,
at one point a 20-point lead that Cleveland knocked down to 14. But when it went from 19 to 14, I didn't sit there and say, "Oh boy, the Celtics got to change things up." It was a contested Mobley three that Al did a good job of closing out on, and Mobley just hit, and then a contested hook shot over Al. And on the other end, the Celtics had pretty good offensive possessions where they just didn't finish. We go to a timeout, and Joe goes back to Neemias Queta, who really had a hard time in that first half. And he comes in, and it doesn't go exactly great, I guess is the best way to put this. So
that run doesn't happen.
So this is, so they go right at Queta. Queta. They put him in action just about every time, whether it's off a screen and roll or finding a way to bring his man up. And I just want to give you what the Cavs did. So Queta goes down and gets a dunk. Lee gets up to 18. Next possession, 3-foot shot by Niang, layup. Possession after that, Jerome layup, down to 14. All this action is at Queta. Craig Porter, dunk. Evan Mobley, dunk. Evan Mobley, free throw because it was an and one on the dunk. Craig Porter makes a jump shot. Evan Mobley, dunk. Lead down to 6. Evan Mobley, 6-foot, 2-point shot. Lead back to 6. Layup by Niang, down to 4. Mitchell makes a 2-point jump shot. Jared Allen, dunk to get it within 2. Donovan Mitchell, drive and layup to get it within 2. Jared Allen, layup to get it within 2. So these were all layups and dunks. Yeah. And they were all getting Queta out of position, driving right at him. And we saw a 14-point lead, at one point even an 18-point lead, because the Celtics scored in the first couple of possessions that he was in, evaporate within about 5 minutes. And it was just putting him in action the entire time. And there are times, Mike, where he does when he gets in good position, he actually can stay in front of guards pretty well. Like the
first half
jump shot that I said here, it wasn't bad defense. Mitchell made a good shot. Queta was right there. If he was doing that and they were making shots, you say, okay. But he is just putting himself in such bad position, and you can tell he's not quite sure where he should be. Should I be in a drop? Should I be coming up on the ball? And he's questioned himself because he hasn't been in these positions enough. And Mike, that kind of leads to what Mazzulla, you mentioned it at the beginning of the pod, and maybe you want to get into it here. What he said after the game.
Can I
playing him? Yeah.
I got 2 text messages from you last night that I think express my frustrations of what I was watching. In the first half, Kate is in the game, drive to the lane. Second half, my text message from you. Mikey, I think we know what the Celtics deficiencies are now.
On defense, yeah. And we've alluded to it. They just have issues with their bigs right now, and particularly with him, and it's leading to layups and finishes at the rim. I do think at times against bad teams, the Celtics aren't great as a team on defense too, if we're being honest, and there is an effort issue, and I think that's going to be an all-season thing. But I think the Queta issue So I guess my question, let's talk about what Mazzulla said and your
Yeah,
thoughts on what Mazzulla said and what you thought
my
last
thought.
night should have happened, what you think going forward should happen, because they're two separate
So
things.
yeah, I'll start with what he said and my thoughts on it. My first thoughts are that I think it's wonderful to have a coach that supports you and is going to defend you. And
Why don't you tell the folks what he said?
because I don't have it in front of me.
All right. So basically, what he said, it was along the lines of he's going to put him out here. There hasn't been a lot of experience, but this is the guy he's going to ride with. I'm paraphrasing, but it was along those lines.
Yeah, and so I think there's an obvious direction that the Celtics are going in as far as their backup bigs go for the future of this team. And Keita is in their long-term plans. They want him to be the guy. They want him to be the next, backup center or replacement for Al and KP when they move on or retire from this game. In Al's case, I think it's great to have a coach that will stand up there for you and will allow you to play through tough minutes and to tell his veterans, I trust you guys enough to get us through this. But I don't know. I don't agree with it because there's a guy on that bench that they rode with last year who has developed through the system that the Celtics have developed for years, has shown he knows where to be in the right place, has shown he can be actually an effective defensive rebounder in his time last season, that he can be an effective rim defender. I know Cornette has struggled this year, but he has a track record on a championship team. And the goal is to win a second championship before this tax kicks in. And I was really concerned that this game was going to cost him last night because Keita played too much. And I thought the second half was ridiculous. I thought that third quarter run was ridiculous, and it was an easy answer. Play Tillman or play Cornette, and don't play this guy. And so, Joe is the coach, and Joe's the championship coach, and he knows what he's doing. But I think he's got to be careful because he's got guys on that bench who are proven players and have shown up in these moments and played well. And they're not playing right now for a guy who, quite honestly, isn't playing well when he's in the game. And he was a minus 15 last night.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And I think it's fair to say that, Cornette is much more equipped to, defend and give more resistance at the rim. It knows exactly how to take angles and understands the coverages better at this point. I do appreciate, and so first of all, Joe's not going to be able to do this without winning it last year. To be able to, well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe he would have went forward with this last year, but I appreciate the stubbornness in a good way of understanding you're not going to have a ton of games like this to gain experience from. And at the end of the day, maybe, this was obviously a big one for your players. It's not your ultimate goal. Your ultimate goal is to be a champion again and to repeat. And his understanding that the best way for them to do that is if Keita gets closer and closer to his ceiling as this game goes on. And these experiences, which now will be a learning experience, you get it on film. You can sit down with Keita, and he has showed the ability to improve, really well. That right now we're in game 15. That maybe in game 50, this is really starting to click, and then maybe in game 82 in the playoffs, it's not just clicking; it's becoming part of your DNA. And you know exactly how to, react in different situations to screening rules or when players are attacking to you, taking the proper angles, being in the right coverage, and not putting yourself and your team in a bad spot. And if they're able to do that, and let's say Porzingis and Al are back, maybe you get 3 to 5 minutes a game out of Keita, 5 to 8 minutes of the game, Keita in the playoffs, and they're solid. don't hurt you minutes. Or, worst case scenario, one of those guys is unavailable and he's an actual member of your rotation and he does okay. And even better than that, next year, in years going forward, he's on the cheap and he's a rotational player that you can depend on. It's really helpful. So having the long-term view and having the job security that Mazzulla has to do that, I think is commendable. As a fan, I wanted Cornette in there last night. We could go through our text messages back and forth. I can't take those back. In the moment, I absolutely wanted Cornette with some time to really, let it saturate and think about what happened. I respect what Mazzulla is doing, and I think it's the right thing for the franchise. It's the right thing for Keita, even if the results are tough to swallow right now. Because his upside, I don't think there's any one that would even argue this. His upside is much higher than any of the other reserve bigs, not named Horford or Porzingis, on the team. He has the highest ceiling. Lowest floor, definitely, but highest ceiling.
Yeah, I think that I agree with all of that. And, the Celtics brass, I would hope if this is the direction that they're going, is that they see a ceiling with him that's really high. Because in my opinion, anyways, you're playing him over a very good backup center.
Yeah,
you are. That's what's happening here to develop this kid for the long term. Where in the short term, I believe you have the answer. And so I hope that by game 50, this is what happens. Obviously, I hope that Keita is in a better place. But it feels risky.
It is. It doesn't always work out.
It feels risky on a championship team. It wouldn't feel risky if I was the Detroit Pistons. But, obviously I'm going to be rooting for this kid. But yeah, it's frustrating to watch, obviously, as a fan. Yeah.
It's risky, but you've seen instances on other championship teams where guys don't have the chance to develop, then they go elsewhere and they become good players around the league. And, the teams are left sitting, wow, he could have done this here. And I think there's a risk reward here that the Celtics need to measure because of the way new dynamics of the league, the new cap situation in the league, on what they can actually bring in and what they have to do to keep this team at the high watermark that they want to keep him at. So it's an interesting time. This is for observer of a team that doesn't really have a lot to look for during the regular season outside of when is Porzingis going to come back and how did they fold him back in. This is kind of an interesting storyline to watch for us.
Absolutely is.
And see how this develops. Also
want to...
It's kind of, go ahead.
Another little tidbit of developing play is Jordan Walsh's run against Toronto was good. Just putting that out there. Yeah, so I know I've beaten up on him because I don't think he has an NBA body, and he's easy to push around. But if he's going to shoot corner threes and hit them, he's going to have some minutes this year. Keep getting in the gym. Hopefully this off season he gets with whoever Jason Tatum works out with, but he's going to put some muscle on. But I thought that was a good sign for the Celtics because they're a little thin in general. That was a good sign against Toronto.
Mike, something interesting is going on around the league. This is my only around the league thing that I want to bring up is that you have a lot of good players that I think would have been moved in previous years that are kind of sitting on their teams right now and still
be hard to move them.
Somewhat productive. And my question for you is do you think it's good for the league? Because the Lakers and the Heat can't just go out and grab a Zach LaVine right now or a player like that. Or do you think it's kind of bad for the league because we don't have as much movement and some of these guys that still have something in the tank and are really productive players aren't really going anywhere because of their contracts?
First off, there's going to be movement because these GMs like crack addicts and they're going to figure out a way to move some players and move draft picks. That's going to happen. But we're just not going to see as much movement. And to answer your question, Jim, it's great for the league to be able to look forward to a Brooklyn Nets in Charlotte Hornets game because the two teams play hard and they're entertaining and they might make the play-in when both of them were like predicted to win like 12 games this year. I think that's really good for the league to have more teams having to keep their players because once they blow up, they're unwatchable for like 2 months. I like it. I like that the Bulls might have to hold on to these players now that they finally have like a real roster. I don't know. I like it. I don't think we need all that movement. I think honestly for the players themselves, I think it's better for them because when they move to these other teams, they have smaller roles. They don't score as much. They have a better chance of being an all-star. Like if you look at the kid in Brooklyn this year, who they're not going to re-up, he's scoring like 24 points a game. What's his name?
The just scorer there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm drawing a blank on his name too. Hold on, I'll look. Why?
But the team's competing. They won a tough game last night, and he wouldn't be able to do that on any other team in the league. Where, he might get all-star votes this year. That wouldn't happen anywhere else. I think it's good for the league.
Yeah, I think it's good for the league too. Cam Thomas.
Thomas, yeah.
Yeah, and he's been a better defender this season than he has been in the past. They're well coached over there. That's
the other thing. There's some good coaches this year on those teams too.
Oh, but yeah. Well, that's the other thing, and you see more teams. Brooklyn's another one I talked about early in the pod. Charlotte certainly, and is another team.
It was a great game last night. I don't know if you watched it. It was a great game.
No, I didn't. But they're playing like the Celtics, or at least trying to play like the Celtics. Obviously, they don't have the horses that the Celtics have, but they're trying to compete in that way. And I think the other thing it's doing, and you just alluded to this, is it's really limited the amount of bad teams in the league.
Yeah.
You have a lot of teams now that are going to be competing to get into the playoffs. It makes tanking, I think, much harder. Outside of the Wizards, there really isn't like a team you look at and just say, wow, they're cratering with just not having talent right now. Even Toronto, once Scotty Barnes is back, Scotty Barnes is legit. They seem to have guys that play hard,
some pieces.
well coached. Yeah. So I do think the competitive level in the league right now and the parity in the league is probably better than it has been. I think there's less shitty teams, really, really shitty tanking teams. And I think some of those teams would love to trade off assets so they could tank because they want to get in that Cooper Flag sweepstakes right now. And I think your top tier teams are also maybe that's a negative. There isn't as many great teams in the league as there has been in previous years as well. So it's kind of interesting on how that's working out.
Well, I think that's the next step for the league is to rethink their draft system. Because I think we should incentivize these teams like Brooklyn and the Hornets that are showing up every night to play hard. I think there's a way you can do that. Maybe there's a tournament at the end of the year that gets you into the lottery. I don't know. Maybe there's something they could do.
Is this new kind of cap system where these teams can't unload different players? Is it kind of doing that anyways?
It might be. Yeah. And let me ask you this question. I think I know what the answer is. You look at a guy like Dennis Schroeder, right, who's bounced around the league quite a bit.
Yeah.
His coach is obviously fully invested in this team, so therefore, like he's really fully invested in this guy who is maybe the 15th to 18th best point guard in the NBA. He's playing hard every night. He's fun to watch. If they blow that team up, that's not the kind of effort you're going to get from Dennis Schroeder going forward. I think these kind of storylines and things are good for the league. I just think in general, like I'm starting to look forward to watching these players. I'm looking forward to watching Dennis Schroeder this year. It's like something I look.
You've always been really high on him. He's playing better. I think like the Olympics kind of helped him.
But no, he's just playing hard. Like they're just playing hard. Like they're showing effort. The only guy on that team in Brooklyn that doesn't play hard is Ben Simmons. Like there aren't many teams.
He's been better this year too. And he's still a coward and can't shoot, but he's been even better this year as well.
Sure. I just think
the bar was pretty low with
it's
him, but yeah.
it's just good for the league to have this parity. Zach Levine playing well this year. That's good.
Well, even like,
Yeah.
I think Atlanta's another example where, Trae Young is probably a guy that would have been chopped or been talked about being chopped, but I think there are teams that just can't take that contract on, or even if they could, they got to think, well, how do we build around that? And would be in jail soon. So it's interesting now. Atlanta has to build around him, and they're drafted looked like
they're doing it
well, So.
Yeah. And I think they're a team to watch that could run off some wins here and get going. I do, with Dyson Daniels and the way he defends. They were playing Sacramento the other night. That was a big win on the road for them.
The French kids that they drafted. Yeah, no, they it's interesting. It's how things are shaping up, and Dyson Daniels, they got him in the trade.
Great trade for Atlanta.
Yeah, really good trade for Atlanta.
All right, I got to get back to work, Jim.
Yeah, so that's it. Celtics, another playing game. Not a playing, cup game, whatever it is, on Friday night against the Wizards. See if they can build up the scoring margin.
They got to win by 50.
Yeah, and they might
win by 50.
They might against. This is a bad basketball team. There isn't many in the league, but this one is. All right, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.